When The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was released in 1998 for the Nintendo 64, it wasn't merely anticipated, it was expected to define a console and an era. Not only did it meet those lofty expectations, but it also surpassed them, permanently transforming the landscape of adventure gaming. With its innovative 3D design and cinematic storytelling, Ocarina of Time perfected elements that many games were still struggling to understand, setting a benchmark that remains influential. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was a pioneer in transforming traditional 2D adventure gameplay into an immersive 3D experience, meticulously crafting a world that was not only vast but deeply interactive. The introduction of 3D landscape was not merely aesthetic, it's fundamentally changed how players interacted with the game world. This transition involved a complex reimagining of movement, combat, and puzzle-solving mechanics that were previously constrained by 2 dimensions. Central to this evolution was the innovative Z-targeting system, which revolutionized combat in 3D spaces. This system allowed players to lock onto targets, a mechanic that simplified fighting by managing spatial complexity and focusing player attention. It made combat encounters smoother and more strategic, as players could circle around enemies, dodge attacks, and counter with precision. This feature was crucial in maintaining the pace and flow of battles, ensuring they felt engaging rather than cumbersome. Exploration in Ocarina of Time was equally groundbreaking. The game world of Hyrule was designed to be vast and open, encouraging exploration while still guiding players through a coherent narrative path. The game seamlessly integrated vast plains, dense forests, and sprawling dungeons, each filled with intricate puzzles that utilized the 3D environment. Players needed to think in all dimensions, manipulating objects, navigating complex terrain, and observing environmental cues to progress. Moreover, the game's use of elevation and depth added layers to puzzle design and exploration. Link could climb, dive, and interact with his surroundings in ways that were previously impossible. This depth extended to its dungeons, which were masterfully crafted labyrinths that utilized vertical space and required players to think and observe beyond the flat plane. Through these mechanics, Ocarina of Time not only mastered the challenge of 3D game design, but also set a new standard for how adventure games could utilize 3-dimensional space to create a more engaging and dynamic player experience. This mastery of 3D gameplay mechanics ensured that players felt a real sense of adventure and discovery as they navigated the richly detailed world of Hyrule. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time also elevated video game storytelling to cinematic heights, blending narrative techniques typically reserved for films with interactive gameplay. This approach introduced a new depth to gaming narratives, making use of dynamic cutscenes, a moving musical score, and a complex, layered story that engaged players emotionally and intellectually. The game's narrative unfolds with a cinematic flair that was groundbreaking for its time. As players guide Link through the mystical land of Hyrule, they encounter a series of cutscenes that are not just visually stunning, but also crucial for advancing the storyline and developing characters. These scenes are crafted with careful attention to camera angles, lighting and pacing, which work together, enhancing the emotional impact of key moments. Whether it's the poignant first meeting with Princess Zelda behind the castle gardens, or the dramatic encounter with the sinister Ganon. Voiceless though the characters may be, their stories are conveyed through expansive animations and interactions that give life to the world of Hyrule. The use of music plays a pivotal role in its storytelling, with themes and motifs that resonate with the locales and characters, amplifying the emotional depth of its narrative. The iconic ocarina, which Link uses to play various songs, integrates the game's music directly into the gameplay, affecting the environment and time itself, which further blurs the lines between player action and narrative progression. The game's implementation of time travel is particularly notable for adding complexity to the storyline. As Link shifts between his child and adult selves, players experience a world that changes based on their interactions in the past, adding layers of cause and effect that enriches the narrative. This mechanic not only deepens the plot, but also enhances the thematic richness of the story, exploring themes of growth, responsibility, and destiny. Through these innovative storytelling techniques, Ocarina of Time doesn't just tell a story, it immerses players in it, making them active participants in a world that is deep and evolving as any cinematic universe. This level of narrative depth was instrumental in showing that video games could be powerful mediums for storytelling, comparable to film in its ability to convey complex stories and evoke strong emotional responses from its audience. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time not only perfected elements of the adventuring genre, but also fundamentally refined it, setting a standard that games continue to aspire to decades later. Its profound impact on adventure gaming is evident in the myriad titles that have borrowed and built upon its mechanics and narrative techniques. Ocarina of Time's legacy is most palatable in its holistic approach to game design, which integrates story, gameplay, and environments into a seamless, immersive experience. The game's innovation in 3D spatial mechanics, particularly the Z targeting system, became a foundational element in adventure gaming, allowing for fluid combat and interaction with a three-dimensional space. The system has been adapted and refined in countless other games, becoming a standard feature in the genre now. Moreover, Ocarina of Time's approach to an open-world design influenced the structure of many future adventure titles. Its expansive world of Hyrule was designed with an attention to detail that encouraged exploration and discovery, while still guiding players through a structured narrative path. The game demonstrated that large-scale worlds could be both vast and meaningful, filled with secrets, puzzles, and lores that rewarded player curiosity. This balance of open-world freedom and narrative depth has inspired the design of many modern adventure games, from Skyrim to The Witcher 3. The game's narrative ambition, particularly its use of cinematic storytelling, set a new expectation for what video games could achieve in terms of story. The emotional depth, complex characters, and intertwined gameplay and narratives set a blueprint for how stories could be told in interactive media. The themes of time, growth, and destiny explored in Ocarina of Time have echoed through the industry, influencing how stories are crafted in games today. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time not only defined adventure gaming for its generation, but also elevated the potential of video game medium as a whole. Its enduring relevance in discussions about the greatest games of all time, its continued influence on game design, and its ongoing inspiration to gamers and developers alike solidify its legacy as a cornerstone in the evolution of adventure gaming. Today, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time is not just considered a milestone in gaming, but a masterclass in game design. Its ability to blend mechanics, narrative, and aesthetics into a cohesive and engaging experience was groundbreaking in 1998 and remains exemplary. This game didn't just play its notes correctly, it orchestrated an experience that resonates across generations, establishing it as a cornerstone not only of the Zelda franchise, but of video gaming as a whole. Its legacy of innovation and excellence in 3D game design and cinematic storytelling continues to influence and inspire, making it a true classic in the annals of video game history.